Thanks to the war in Iran, the disruption to global oil production has reached historic levels. Prices have remained stubbornly high, and there are few signs they will bounce back anytime soon. Budgets everywhere are feeling the strain. Senior business reporter Peter Armstrong is here to talk all about it. So, Peter, how are Canadians being impacted, and what kind of damage is this doing to household budgets?
You know, it's important to keep that in mind, because I think, you know, when we talk about, Brent crude and these sort of things that don't mean anything to anybody at home, the thing to remember is oil is like the lifeblood of an economy. It feeds everything. If you look around this studio, you look around at home, you look around your office, everything you're looking at was touched by, shaped by, shipped by, brought to you at some point in its creation by oil. It was, at its production, in its shipping, everything you're surrounded by was touched at some point by oil. And so when oil prices go up, your ability to get that stuff is there are shortages, there are eventually price increases. And this stuff, we're seeing the very first increases we saw as a result of the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz was the price of crude oil. That eventually bled into gasoline, didn't take very long. Then we started seeing, jet fuel. We're now seeing container ship fuel, which impacts a lot of stuff. That's gone up 87.5% from the beginning of the war. Wow. So you're seeing the way this starts to feed into the costs of everything, the shipping costs of getting stuff. The price of diesel fuel in Canada, on average, is well up over $2 a litre now. So the cost of a mom and pop store, let alone a Canadian Tire or a Walmart, has gone up. And they're going to have to figure out how to adjust to that. And the bigger problem, as you and I have been talking about for days now, is we don't know the path out of this yet. We don't know how this war ends. We don't know when it will end. We don't know what it will take for it to end. But something has to happen for the price of oil to change. That Strait of Hormuz has to reopen. The notion that we can address this with strategic reserves or, loosening some of the restrictions around Russia simply isn't true. We're looking at like 2, 3, maybe 4 million barrels a day on a problem that's already 300 million barrels, a hole in the market of 300 million barrels deep, and we're only addressing it by 2 or 3 million barrels a day, and it's growing by 20 million. It's a problem.
It's a drop in the oil
and it's beginning
bucket.
to hit us all.
Yeah. The latest inflation numbers are also out.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. But the problem is
they don't address any of this. Right. So the inflation numbers, by their nature, look back in time. It's a snapshot of what was going on in February, and it compares that to the month before, it compares that to the year before that, and gives us a sense of where prices were. And one of the interesting things is gasoline came down. It came down not by as much as it had previously, but it did come down. Even if you look at like a 9-month chart, you can see gasoline was quite significantly lower than it had been at the beginning of the year. Then the war started, and all of a sudden the price of gasoline picked up. And as I say, that can trickle into all these other costs. You think about how much food we ship to Canada, especially here in the winter. All of those shipping costs are going to rise. All the logistics cost of getting stuff that we want is going to rise. And the longer this war drags on, the more it's going to show up in the data. Right now, it's just me as in you paying for it out in the world. It eventually, next month, the month after, starts to show up in the data and starts to shape how policymakers look at. We've got the Bank of Canada coming up this week. They're not going to move, but they're going to factor this into these future decisions as they go further down the road and get a sense of where the economy is, what the underlying data are telling us about that, and where they think things are going to be in a week, a month, a quarter, a year.
Who knows? All right, Peter, thank you. CBC's Peter Armstrong in our Toronto studio.